Hello, everybody. How you are doing? Hope you're doing well. It just occurred to me that I don't think I have the. Do I have the alerts muted? Can I actually? Can I? Well, it should. It's on its own track. Yeah, I can just only mess with the music in the worst case at the end, I guess. And I can fix that. Anyway, ignore that. I should have really thought about this before I started the stream, but of course I didn't. I'm happy as it is as the stream's running. Haven't been doing this in a long time. Anyway, we're here to record a podcast today. Obviously, it's Wednesday. I'm back to the normal release schedule from now on, hopefully. And we'll get right into it. And as usual, I won't be as active replying to chat because, we don't want to take away for the audio listeners. This is a podcast after all. And I'm old school, I think that means audio only and RSS feed. So let's do it. Let's get into it. I'll talk about a little bit about why I was gone for such a long time. On the show anyway, so might as well get going, I think. And I'll see if I can still if I still know how to do all of this. A bit scared. It's always really bad when I'm away for such a long time. Maybe I should do a little test here. Yeah, that seems to work. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Well, that doesn't. Because this is set to the wrong thing, I think. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Why is that not recording? Whoop. Why is that not working? Oh, because it's not aux. It's that one, I think. Oh God. Recording 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That looks better. Professional podcasting over here. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, I think there was a Windows update after I came back. So in the meantime, while I was on holiday, there was one of the Windows updates that changed everything. All the audio devices around. I guess Microsoft wants to keep it interesting for us podcasters. Hello, Astral. How are you doing? Hope you're having a good afternoon or whatever time of the day it is for you. So let's try this again. Let's see if I can still podcast. Professional podcaster trademark. Totally, allegedly. Let's do this. You're listening to The Private Citizen, defending your right to have something to hide. This is episode 122 for Wednesday, the 17th of August, 2022. Drachenlord defeated? Hello, everybody. My name is Fab, and I'm coming to you live from Düsseldorf in Germany. I'm back, everybody. Back with the show. Trying to get the hang of this. It's not that easy. I'm still, I don't know. I've been away for a long time. and I'm now trying to get back into the flow of everything. But I'm giving my best. First episode here in a while. And we're going to talk about Drachenlord, Rainer Winkler, YouTuber I've talked about before when we discussed whether what was happening to him was how much of the situation he was in was his own fault. If it was bullying on behalf of of his haters, which I've basically come to the conclusion that they're just his community. If you're interested in the whole backstory, go to privatecitizen.press, go to the show notes for episode 122, and there's a tag at the top that says Drachenlord. If you click on that, it'll give you all the other episodes I did on this guy previously. And that will be mostly of interest if you still think he's being bullied and he's a poor dude. And you should probably listen to all those episodes, because then you'll go through the thing we went through, discussing everything and basically coming to the conclusion that it's very complicated. And I've pretty much come to the conclusion that basically what has happened to him is not bullying, because as somebody who was bullied in the past, I am of the belief that if you're being bullied, you try to escape that, and you don't incentivize your bullies to bully you even more, which this guy has been doing because he's making money of that. And there's been some very interesting developments since I was gone, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, I would like to kind of let you know why I was gone for so long. Obviously, I was on holiday. I had 2 holidays this year, which is a bit excessive, but it's just turned out that way. And very long holidays together as well, because my dad and me, we go on a motorbike trip pretty much every year, and we've been doing that. This year was the 7th year, and we've for years now, 2 or 3 or 4 years even, been planning to go to the North Cape, the not really the most northern part in Europe. There's a place that's a bit more north, but it's not really accessible on the mainland Europe. That as well. But it's basically the northern tip of Europe, and it's kind of the thing you do. Especially on a motorbike, it's kind of like a badge of honor if you get there. And we wanted to do that, and because of obviously virus-related reasons, we didn't get that done in previous years. So we kind of planned it this year, and we really wanted to do that because my dad's also not getting any younger, and it's kind of actually it wasn't as taxing as we thought it was, but that was kind of the idea. And then my wife, demanding as she is, also demanded to go on holiday with me, because we basically didn't do that last year. Last year, we had a total of 2 days of holiday together. We went to places, but we worked there, so it wasn't really holiday. And she badly needed that. So once I came back from the North Cape, actually, we had planned to move, to leave immediately afterwards, which would have been a bit stressful. But as I also mentioned in the previous episode of the show, my grandmother, who was 100 years old, died. And we had to, obviously, there was the burial and, the ceremony and everything. And then that turned out to be between, my North Cape trip and this holiday with my wife. So we just had a few more days at home. And then we left. We packed the camping van and we left for Croatia. So I basically, in my holidays, traveled from pretty much the most northern part in Europe to one of the most southern, well, I guess Greece is further south, but, pretty much south as you can go in Europe. It's very interesting. So it was about more than 6,500 kilometers on the motorbike to the North Cape. We went through Finland up to the North Cape and then down through Norway. So that was almost 7,000 kilometers, and then over 3,000, about I think 3,500 in the van to get down to Croatia and drive around there. So I did like 10,000 kilometers of traveling, which sounds exhausting, but really wasn't. The motorbike trip was a lot less exhausting than I thought it was. It was really cold in Norway, especially. Finland was great. Finland was like 30 degrees and sun. Norway was the lowest temperature we had was 12 degrees, and we're talking the middle of July, which I thought was kind of horrible. Rainy and 12 degrees. So I was happy once we got home that I got some real summer. Even though Croatia wasn't as hot as I expected, it was pretty much as warm as Düsseldorf was in the last few weeks. So 34 degrees basically, 32, 34 degrees. I'd expected at least 36 or something like that, but it's kind of cool. Nice beaches. Obviously they have pebble beaches, but my wife, smart as she is, bought these shoes for us, the swimming shoes where you can walk right into the water. That was great. So we had a very good time there, and the motorbike trip was amazing as well. I'm gonna write a blog post about this. I'm actually in the process too. The one quick thing, maybe in case this is just personal stuff, but I feel that people are interested in this. That sometimes you're interested in what the podcast is doing. And the most surprising part, I mean, Dad and me were in Norway 2 years ago. We wanted to go to the North Cape, but it didn't really work, so we just did a trip to the middle of Norway, around the fjords and stuff like that. And so I've been in Norway, I've been in Denmark, I've been in Sweden. I've never been to Finland, and I really like Finland. Finland to me is not. It's not. I mean, it's not only to me. It's not really a Scandinavian country. I mean, outside of Scandinavia, I think people generally consider Finland to be part of Scandinavia, and I always had to, because mostly based on the flag, because all the flags look the same, just different colors, and there I kind of thought there's Scandinavia, but it really isn't really at all like Scandinavia, especially the people. And I think I like the Finns much more than the Scandinavians. They're more my kind of people. When we were there, obviously 30 degrees. We were in the middle of nowhere, obviously going up to the north, next to the Russian border for several days. We're actually 300 kilometers from Murmansk at one point, and it was like very, very rural, and it reminded me of Australia. So you'd come into a town, and then you'd stop there, and there'd be like all the letterboxes of all the people that live around the town. So you have to go into town to pick up your mail. And then you're like at they have like these little shops. In German, we call them Tante Emma Laden, like these small shops that have everything. Aunt Emma stores. In Finland, they're called kauppa. And they're really cool. Like you can buy everything, like from petrol to like lawnmower parts to like car hi-fi systems. To like groceries in there, and very nice people, and lots of hillbillies. People then pick up trucks with like hair long in the back, short in the front, like camo baseball caps, like John Deere caps, short camo pants, tattoos. It was really cool. And we also had this thing happen where my dad, he threw down his bike by accident on the first day, and his clutch handle broke off, which was shit, on like first day of such a long trip. And we went to like this town, and there was like this mechanic in this shop that looked like, just piled with parts. And he tried to like fix it and get a part, and he had a part and that wouldn't fit, and then he tried to file it down, but the drill holes wouldn't fit. And so he's like, I know a guy in town who can weld aluminium, and he's like, there's one other like biker in the shop, and he's like, you watch the place, I'm gonna be right back. He jumps in his van and is gone for about 20 minutes, comes back with like that clutch handle welded. Looked a bit weird, but he was like, this holds better than the original. It's like, so where do you gotta go? And we're like, to the North Cape, back to Germany, about 6,500 kilometers to go. Or like 6,000 kilometers to go. And he's like, it's gonna last that easily, and it did. So I'm really a fan of Finland and the Finnish people. I have to go back there at some point. Lots of mosquitoes though, but we knew that. I was prepared with like some tropical strength mosquito spray, but still. But like, you know, the lakes, the Jarvi, very, very nice. So I enjoyed Finland a lot. I also enjoyed Croatia, but you know, I knew what Croatia was like. Even though last time I was there, it was still called Yugoslavia, and I was like a little boy. But you know, that was fun as well. Anyway, that's why I was gone. I was off the internet. I tried to do that because, you know, I'm on the internet pretty much 24/7. I get up in the morning, get to my computer. I get up to like in the middle to do some, you know, every few hours to do some chores, do some exercise and stuff like that. But I'm in front of my computer all the time. I work in front of my computer, play in front of my computer. So I think it's very healthy for some time, you know, to just turn all that off. And I am really good at that. Usually, like I can do this on holiday pretty well, generally, you know. And yeah, it worked really well. This on the bike, obviously, it's easy, you know. And then I came home and had like a few days, but I also really didn't touch my computer in that time. And then we went with the van. I didn't take any like laptop or anything with me. I actually wrote a story that was kind of pressing that I wrote on paper. And then I transcribed when I got home and filed. But other than that, I was completely like off the internet, and that you know, kind of recharges me. The downside is I forget everything. I was playing Escape from Tarkov yesterday with Jonathan, who's also in chat right now. People will know that I live record these podcasts on Twitch. Usually, I didn't do that for some episodes before I went on holiday because I just had so much stress, so much going on. But I'm doing this now, and obviously back to Wednesday recordings and releases as well. Anyway, I was playing Tarkov with Jonathan, and I completely forgot everything. I don't know how to use my podcasting equipment anymore. It's like it's horrible, but you know, that's the downside. But my brain's really relaxed, so that's pretty cool. And I have a fresh, like, I'm not really burnout type, but it fights that exhaustion that sets in, right? When you do, like, for example, you do a podcast every week, and then after months and years, it's kind of like you get like this, oh God, I kind of like doing this. I do the show because I want to do it, but still sometimes there's this, oh no, now I have to do this. And like that, like going on holiday, like this completely wipes that for me. So that's pretty good. Speaking of episodes, obviously I missed a lot of episodes. I'm going to try to catch up. I'm going to try to stick to the Wednesday releases now and do extra shows whenever I can. There's certainly enough to talk about. I got enough on the docket. But what we're going to do first here, obviously, is talk about Drachenlord. This was something when I was on the bike, I was thinking about, you know, what episodes to do when I come back. And this was one I wanted to do relatively early, like catch up on Drachenlord, because I think some stuff had happened. But when I got back, and I realized what had happened, especially like in the last week, when I was still already back, I was like, okay, this is going to be the first episode. And that's why we are going to talk about Rainer Winkler now. Herr Winkler. So, as I said, I'm not going to go into the details. Oh God, I forgot the most important thing. While I was rambling on, one thing I wanted to tell everybody, thanks for sticking with me, especially all the Patreon subscribers who just stayed subscribed even though I wasn't releasing episodes for like 5-6 weeks. Thank you. You're great. Thanks for supporting the show, and I'll make it up to you. But everybody else, thanks for being patient, and thanks for being here now and listening to this. I appreciate this a lot. Anyway, let's get into the topic. Enough with the sentimental bullshit. Drachenlord. I'm not going to go into the details. You know, if you want the whole story, and it's quite a fascinating one, listen to the previous episodes. Go to privatecitizen.press. go to the show notes, click on Drachenlord on the tag, and then you get all the previous episodes. But a small recap, maybe. So the last time I talked about Drachenlord was episode 121. This was before I left, in that little bits and bobs episode I did. And so the last thing we'd heard about him is that he just gotten off on probation again. He was indicted for insulting the police and assault. And he got probation, and there was the question if, like, this was the second court decision in the same case, and then there was the decision if the state attorney's office was going to go into revision, but they didn't, so he got probation, 2 years. Or was it 1 year? Anyway, he got probation, he didn't have to go to jail. And so he was lucky on that. Meanwhile, he was hiding, he'd lost his driver's license and had to sell his car, and probably isn't getting his driver's license back anytime soon. We talked about all of that. And he was kind of in hiding. Nobody knows where he was, or even now, nobody really knows where he's hiding. But he was, instead of releasing videos and streaming, he was putting all of his energy pretty much into a blog where he was writing like porn stories. And that's where we left Rainer. And a lot has happened since then. Now, the first thing that happened is that he is now reportedly being investigated by the police again for sharing illegal violent pornography and bestiality materials. So there is a Article 184a in the StGB Strafgesetzbuch, the criminal code of the Federal Republic of Germany, that concerns sharing pornographic material that is violent and has to do with animals. So, to speak plainly, the violent part is basically any photos, videos, or stories of, pornographic content where somebody is being forced. It's either being hurt in I think it says like inhumane way, or is being forcibly subjected to sex, i.e. raped. It is not illegal to read those or to watch the videos, or have, as far as I can tell. Obviously, I'm no lawyer. As far as I know, to have this material, but if you share it with other people, this includes putting stories on a blog, then that is illegal. The bestiality part is just having sex with animals, which is also illegal, that is it's just part of German law. Interestingly, I know, because I am gotta be careful how I phrase this. But I know some interesting people, and I've in the recent years I've gotten into interesting social bubbles. One of it is somewhat of a the kinky bubble, basically. So I know that there are people who are turned on by the fantasy of getting raped. Which is, of course, extremely controversial, and because of like this law or other laws like it, also illegal. Having, for example, porn where somebody gets raped might turn you on, but it would be illegal material. Or like writing and sharing stories like that would be illegal, but it is still happening. I just want to talk about this a little bit because, to give you an insight here, because it's easy to read this and go, oh, this is horrible, this is illegal. How can somebody, share or write rape stories? But I think that would be too one-dimensional. That would be something like my colleagues in the mainstream media would do with this story. But I think you're listening to the show because you want a deeper insight. And in this case, I do happen to have a deeper insight, so I'm sharing this with you. So, there are communities where this kind of material, pornographic material, is being disseminated. It's being written. It's being the porn movies. I certainly I don't hang out with people that watch actual videos of rape. But there is pornographic material where basically it's acted, right? And it's mostly women who in the porn film look like they're getting raped, but they're not really getting raped. There's some of this stuff is actually quite progressive, right? There's a lot of like production companies who produce this kind of thing where they put like interviews with the the people did you say actors? I don't know, the porn actors. It's I guess it's acting, with the talent in the movie, where they basically talk about what's happening, and that they actually didn't get raped in the scene, and they're just acting, and that they're here because they like this kind of stuff like that. So it's like not all like smut and disgusting stuff. Some of this is just people have a kink, and they wanna it's not their fault, if you get turned on sexually by something like this, it's like not your fault, right? And sometimes it's also not like, there's people who say, oh well, that's like obviously a disease and you're sick and you should get cured, but like it's not that easy. It's like people used to say, if you're gay, that's a disease and we need to cure that, right? Not that I want to equate the two things, but it's kind of in a situation right now, I feel like, where homosexuality was a few decades ago. I think once we got more enlightened as a society and less prude, which I personally feel is there's a lot of American influence in entertainment and how we deal with it, or has been, for the last, basically since World War II, which is, I think, why a lot of people are more prude than they have to be. I think if we would actually be enlightened and progressive, we would recognize that some people are turned on by things that other people find disgusting, but as long as they do that, in closed communities, who cares? If everybody's happy, they're all happy, and you find you don't want to know, then just don't go there. It's kind of like I object to religion. I don't like religion, so I'm not going to go into a church because, listening to a sermon makes me sick. It makes me angry. And it makes me almost, questioning humanity's intelligence. But I am a tolerant person, so I'm okay with people being religious, as long as they do that, in their little club. I'm okay with that. And this is kind of the same thing for me. So what I want to say here, this is a long-winded way of explaining that I actually don't think what Rainer Winkler did in this case was actually that bad. He had a blog. He had a porn blog. I don't know why, but, why not? And he wrote, so I think the story he's been investigated for, he's been investigated for several things, but like, I think the one thing that is most likely was a story that I also read that was on his blog, for research purposes. And actually, for research purposes, I was following his blog, and I read a story there that people were talking about, which was a story I think he wrote himself. From the way it's written, it's pretty clear that it was him, if you know the way he writes things, where he was writing from the perspective of a medieval lord, and it was pretty clear that he was putting himself into that character, who had the right of the first night with a woman, having sex with her for the first time was like his right, not the husband's right. And so the protagonist in the story rapes a woman. It was, I think, a very distasteful story, but, I don't really want to judge these things. What I can judge is that putting that on an open, publicly accessible forum I'm pretty sure that was illegal. Because of this Article 184A, for one, But also because, it wasn't age restricted, and the pornography like this, you need to age restrict in Germany. You have to, it was just on Blogger, but you have to have at least a, confirmation before you show anything that, the person is as of age, is 18. So that in itself was a problem. But, I don't really want to judge the story. I just want to say that I don't think it's as bad as like the story itself, or even the act of writing such a story. I mean, if that's your kink and you're turned on by that, that's something I can, I am tolerant to. I can tolerate. I'm okay with that. The thing is that most people who do this are smart, and they share and talk about these stories in closed communities, where you don't get in that easy, and that way you don't, by accident, have kids in there, whatever. And of course, because Winkler isn't very smart, he just did this on a public blog. He wanted to make money with this somehow. I don't know. Redeem Ref points out, I think consensual is an important point, not in closed communities. I think so too. I personally think consent is the only thing that matters to a point, right? There's stories where somebody wanted to get eaten. In Germany, we had these cases where somebody was wanted to get eaten and then approached other people, and they killed and ate him, and it was completely consensual. The people who killed and ate that guy still went to jail because consent only goes that far, and I'm okay with that. I think that is a good precedent to have in legal terms, because there are some extremes where like you can't consent is not the be all end all for this kind of thing, because people also that could be like a mental illness, and like you wouldn't know, and it just makes sense that in some cases consent isn't the final deciding factor there. I mean, in some for example, I'm a proponent of people being in certain situations being allowed to end their own life if they want to, which is a thing that's not allowed in Germany. Like their consent is not, it doesn't matter either. And when you have situations like Terry Pratchett, for example, who very, if you ever seen the documentary he did, who knew what kind of illness he had, he had Alzheimer's, he knew what was coming, and he was saying at some point, I just want to die. I want to decide when to die, and at a point where I still can. And I think that's something that, we should actually loosen laws at, And recently, having been in a situation where, my grandmother was at the very end in a very similar situation where she was just like, I'm too old and my body is failing and I don't want to live anymore. And, that can get the people who might want to help end your suffering into legal troubles. Not that in the case of my grandmother, this ever really came up, but, you think about this kind of things when you confront with these situations. I think this is a situation sometimes where I think in certain situations, consent could be the deciding factor, where it's not. But in some situations, I think it should be. It's so the consensual thing. Redeemer says, hey, let's keep the topic at sex, not cannibalism. Still, people could consent to, I don't know. Well, consent to being raped is kind of weird. I don't think that really. This gets very interesting, because I don't think to be really raped you can consent, but like even if you could do that, like there could be mental illness involved, and it's just such a legal minefield that's why I was talking about closed communities. That's why people do this in closed communities. Just because it's such a legal minefield. I mean, it gets so deep. Like once you get into this bubble and you talk to people who are involved in this kind of thing, like if you are actually turned on by being raped, right? The moment where you give consent, you're not being raped, and then the turnoff is gone. So there is this thing called meta consent, which is a very interesting concept, where basically, if you're in a situation where everybody is responsible, and you know each other, and people trust each other, then you can have a situation where you give meta consent. You don't actually give your consent, but the other person knows that you've given it. But like, this is all like basically stuff that people have to like figure out for themselves, and it's not going to help you anything in court. Like, there won't be like a German judge and some guy who's like into BDSM explaining to the judge what meta consent is, right? Under the law, that doesn't exist, right? Under the law, it's either rape or it's not. So like, this is it's not black and white, is what I'm trying to say. None of this is black and white. And this is why smart people don't put this on the public internet. Now, Drachenlord, not being smart, obviously posted the story on his blog. And I think that is at least a part of the violent pornography charge. I don't know about the bestiality. I don't know what happened. I know that he said himself that he was raided, and the police took his computers and his smartphone and documents. So I don't know. Maybe there was stuff on his hard drive. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's no bestiality. Maybe there was nothing involved, and maybe the police is looking for nothing, or won't find anything. I don't know. There's been no official statements by the police, obviously, as to what's going on. Developing investigation and such. But the only thing I know is that Rainer Winkler is well known for years ago, and I've seen these parts of these videos and streams myself, where he was saying that he would be interested to have sex with large marine mammals. That is something he said himself. And then there's rumors that he had such videos on his computer, but we don't know. What I do know is that if he is convicted in this case, he could get jail time of up to 3 years. And I think this would certainly mean that he wouldn't be on probation again. It was a minor miracle that he got probation in his last conviction, which already was his second conviction. So he had 2 convictions for assault, or aggravated assault, I think even. And usually you don't get probation on the second time, but he did. It's very lucky. We talked about the court case where there was some people who were supposed to give evidence, who were witnesses who were drunk and disorderly in court, and that played into it. But I don't think he's getting off the third time. So I also don't think it's going to, from, having read and watched lawyers talk about this situation, I think pretty much everybody agrees that this won't jeopardize his current probation, because it's just a whole complete different thing, and it's being investigated, and the way that works in Germany is just going to take years, whatever, at least for the final verdict, if he appeals again and all this kind of stuff. So, and I think his probation is only 1 year, so that would not play into it. But it most certainly means that if he's convicted in this, the state attorney's office would probably immediately push for him going to jail, and I think the next judge is going to concur, so he might go to jail. And that rape story, not a lawyer, but if he's really written it, and if they have stuff on his computer now that proves that he's written it, might be enough for that alone. So, yeah. Google took that blog down, by the way, because of terms of service violations. People obviously reported it, and because I think pretty much also because of the rape story took that down. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't breaking the law beforehand. And it kind of sounds like the police secured some evidence before Google shut the blog down. Well, that was one thing that was going on with Drachenlord. After his blog was taken down, he was doing a lot like on that blog and not really producing videos or streaming. He was just basically advertising this blog on his video channels. And once the blog was down, he was doubled down on streaming and producing even a few videos, mostly streaming video games, playing games, and then talking also about, his community, i.e. the hater, which is the haters, which is his only content pretty much. So basically rant streams, right? Now it did not take long for his YouTube channel to get a community strike. Again, I have to say, like a community violation strike. I have to say again, because this has happened multiple times before. And he's always been able to wriggle out of it. A worst case, he would just if you get a strike like that, you can't upload videos for 7 days, I think, on the second strike. And then he would just wait for 7 days and, do other things. So he's always gotten around there. This strike, he had copyright strikes in the past, but also community violations. This particular strike was a terms of service, like a community terms of service violation for an old video he used to do. So to go a little bit back into the history, when he was just mainly doing like metal videos and talking about his haters, he would also, haters would like pretend to be women and, try to like, what's it called? Catfishing, I think. Catfish him, try to get him to open up, in WhatsApp chats. And he did. He sent people, in some cases women, other people, I think men masquerading as women, penis photos, naked photos of himself. They got leaked on the internet, at which point he went, okay, I'm going to create a Pornhub account and uploaded porn videos, including a video where he has sex with his blow-up doll, which for research purposes, I have to stress, actually, for research purposes, I watched, and it's a 2 girls 1 cup situation. I cannot bleach this out of my brain. I cannot drink enough strong spirits in my life, I think, to kill enough brain cells. They will always be mirrored. Whenever I see Drachenlord, I see the videos of him having sex with his blow-up doll and putting a huge black rubber dildo up his ass. So he uploaded this kind of stuff. So that's how he got the nickname Lustlord. Lust being the same word in German. And then he took that nickname and ran with it. So for a time he was uploading videos on YouTube called Lustlord videos, where he would be talking about sexual practices and having sex and, being bisexual and the time he ordered a hooker, and all this kind of stuff. So there was there's some of these videos were still on YouTube, and he got striked. He got a community strike because of one of them. Now, instead of waiting for this to sort itself out, or just 7 days, so he got banned from uploading videos for 7 days. Instead of waiting that out, as you would usually do, we have a question in Twitch chat, which is a typical Twitch chat question. When you say ass, do you mean the body part or the animal? I mean the body part. Astro says, I need brain breach just from your description. Yeah, it's worse enough in the description. Imagine having actually seen it. Not good. Anyway, let's move on. Let's not think about that. So instead of waiting it out, being the genius as he is, Drachenlord decided, well, I've got some other. He had a vlog channel. He had a gaming channel. So his main channel got a strike. And he couldn't upload. So he uploaded a video, which I saw, by the way, to his vlog channel, where he said, okay, I'm uploading here now. And then he talks about things. And then he talks about, in the video, about circumventing the terms of service clause that, because he got a strike, he couldn't upload. He's like, I'm getting around this by uploading this video. Yeah. I mean, circumventing the strikes bad enough. Actually, admitting to it in a video is dumb, especially if you're a Drachenlord and you have this community, which basically is made up only out of people who don't like you, and they will, like the minute this goes up on YouTube, they will flag that and send it to YouTube and go, look, this guy you banned for 7 days is circumventing the ban. And YouTube went and permabanned him because of this. Now, I think he's done something like this in the past. And there have always been these kind of rumors, people talking about that YouTube was kind of not... YouTube is... Twitch is a bit stricter, and I feel Twitch is generally treats most of their streamers the same way, right? So they'll be like even huge cash cow streamers, they will ban because of relatively minor things. Doc Disrespect comes to mind. But YouTube tends to be sometimes, or seems to be a bit more, I don't know, having double standards a little bit. It seems like some people get kicked off there very easily and others don't. And there always were stories that, Drachenlord obviously very lucky, or there's somebody watching out for him. And there's now the rumor that YouTube finally had enough, and somebody in the YouTube hierarchy said, YouTube Germany, obviously, because I don't think anybody outside Germany really knows who Drachenlord is. But, they said, okay, we're not making that much money off this guy. Let's treat him like anybody else who would have done this, and let's cut him off permanently. I think people were kind of protecting him because of this. We talked about this in the past, this Sasha Lobo kind of belief that he's actually just a poor guy who's getting bullied, which is something when you just from a very cursory glance at the topic. I was thinking that in the very beginning as well. When you just look at some of the stuff out there and you just see snippets on YouTube, you're like, oh, these people are just, they're tormenting this guy, and really he hasn't done anything bad. But then if you actually put in the time, which of course people like Sasha Lobo and a lot of my colleagues in the mainstream media don't do, and you actually watch, and I have watched, believe you me, I've probably watched 1,000 hours, probably more, of Drachenlord content, of like unedited his content. You realize that the guy is an absolute asshole, especially towards his community, and basically baits them into attacking him. And also, he gets triggered by everything and doesn't understand. He's very easy to troll, and he obviously doesn't understand that. And he's incentivized to keep this whole thing going because he makes money of it, right? So people will show up in front of his house, or back when he still had a house, behaved badly. He would like even show them live on stream or whatever, and then make fun of them and tell them that they're assholes and idiots, go out, shout at them, and then more people would turn up. And obviously people would watch the videos where he's shouting at the people at his house, because that's good content. Well, it's kind of like car crash, you can't look away content, but there's some people who like that kind of stuff. And no kink shaming, as we said before. People like all kinds of shit. And it was just like this perpetuum mobile that would never stop. And if you then watched hundreds of hours of that, you realized, but the mainstream media, they don't have the time, they don't want to, so people didn't realize this. So I guess YouTube at some point went, well, we've looked at this long enough. He is not the poor bullying victim that he always claims to be. And he's obviously, we can't protect him from everything. If he's so stupid to violate our own terms of service in this way and then even talk about it, like, we have no choice. Anyway, they permabanned him. And this is confirmed. We had my colleagues in the mainstream media actually got in contact with YouTube and confirmed that he is permanently banned on the platform. Now, streaming this on Twitch. This is something that the Twitch audience will be interested in knowing. Now, he then said, okay, I'm going to start streaming on Twitch. You have to know that he was permabanned on Twitch, even though he disputes that he was permabanned. But I think about 3 years ago, he was streaming GTA 5 and he dropped the N-bomb. Oh, that was like the last nail in the coffin. I think that was the last strike. And then he got permabanned on Twitch. He disputes that, but like that account is gone. And he never came back. And so it seems like he was permabanned. He created another account under his real name now after his YouTube account got permabanned. And started streaming on Twitch. Now, during his first stream, he was again kicked off the platform, which seems to confirm that he was permabanned, just opened another account, somebody reported him, and he got kicked off again. So now his Twitch account was also offline, presumably also permanently. He was already streaming on TikTok, so he kept streaming on TikTok then. And now he did like you watch this unfold and you sit there and there's this thing in the so-called Drachen game, people who are involved with this whole story and who follow it, and they call this all a game or whatever. And then there's this saying that there are script writers, that this is an incredibly elaborate reality TV show, which sometimes you start even I start thinking that, like, there's always this famous German journalist, Günther Wallraff, who's famous for just disguising himself and then for months working in a place because they have like bad business practice or whatever, and then he just exposes them. And people were saying, like, when is Günther Wallraff gonna take off the fat suit and reveal that Drachenlord really was him the whole time? And this was all an experiment, a social experiment that went on for like, I don't know, 10 years or whatever. Speaking of 10 years, the interesting thing, and this is one of the conspiracy theory points again, Drachenlord was permabanned on YouTube exactly on the day 11 years after you opened his YouTube account. So, food for thought. But anyway, people was like saying these are script writers and stuff like that. And now comes the situation again where where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm almost believing the script writer theory, right? Because so he's banned on YouTube, he's banned on Twitch. He basically kicked himself off YouTube because of this really dumb thing he did, where he tried to circumvent the strike, right? So now he got kicked off Twitch, and now he's on TikTok. What does he do on TikTok? He streams, and then on stream, in the stream, develops the theory that he had an OnlyFans before. I think he also had some porn content, but that he should stream games on OnlyFans. Because he had the problem on TikTok. On YouTube, he was using subscriber chat, right? So he didn't get that much hate. On TikTok, everybody could post, so it was just like the chat was just like insulting him nonstop. So he was like, okay, on OnlyFans, I can stream to only people who pay to watch this. And this would be great. So he says this. And he's like, OnlyFans not only for porn content. I don't know. The only stuff I have ever seen on OnlyFans it's not even that much porn. It's like simping, pretty much. It's like softcore. It's like not even softcore porn. It's women, largely women, who maybe show their breasts or whatever. They have paying subscribers, and then they get, they got to watch them on OnlyFans, and then they, they show their breasts. And sometimes they show more. Sometimes they also show, everything. And sometimes they even like pleasure themselves with dildos. But like I don't think I've ever seen actual hardcore pornography on OnlyFans. But then I'm not an expert in the platform. My interest in this actually is mostly because of, I write about internet phenomena and, You kind of got to be up on everything. So, yeah. But if I want porn, I go to Pornhub. I mean, what the hell? Anyway, so he was like, I'm going to stream games on OnlyFans. Okay. I mean, that's a thing. But then he was like, in his TikTok stream, was kind of promoting his OnlyFans account, which I think you're allowed to do. But then he did a thing afterwards, after the stream, he did the thing you're not allowed to do. Apparently, according to the TikTok terms of service, as far as I can tell, you're not allowed to link to other like video sites in your bio. And he just linked his OnlyFans account in his bio. And then they banned his account. So now he's banned off YouTube, he's banned off Twitch, he's banned off TikTok, and then people got him banned off OnlyFans as well, and then on Snapchat. So now he is banned. I don't know, YouTube, Twitch seem to be permabanned. Don't know about the other sides, but he seems to be relatively permanently deleted off the internet. He hasn't been on Facebook and Twitter for ages. His Twitter accounts apparently years ago were repeatedly deleted for impersonation, because I guess Twitter didn't believe him that he was Drachenlord, which, I watched like some videos of him talking about this, which sounds like a Rainer Winkler lie, but then on the other hand, it's Twitter. I've seen so much shit on Twitter and like experienced it myself. With getting verified and all this shit. I actually believe that Twitter kept deleting his accounts because they didn't believe him that he was himself. I actually believe that. Anyway, he's off the internet pretty much. Currently, he's uploading gaming streams on Odyssey, which is this decentralized YouTube free speech thing that I probably have to talk on this show at some point, because it's right in my alley, or on my alley here. But like, he doesn't have reach there, and he can't make money there. So now he's pretty much off the internet, which brings us to the question: has Drachenlord been defeated? Well, has he been defeated? That is always the question. That's the issue in the game. That's what the haters always talk about. Besiegt, German for being defeated, and they put that in chat, and then Winkler gets very agitated, and I will never be defeated. But I don't know. His YouTube channel is gone. He was always kind of defining himself as a YouTuber. That was always the thing he was proud of. So he's not that anymore. He can't really broadcast to large audiences anymore. I mean, he can use something like Odyssey. But, when I eventually talk about Odyssey or platforms like that, the downside of decentralized platforms is that they're decentralized. And the way to get a huge audience is on platforms like Twitter or YouTube that are centralized, because everybody's in one place. And that's the way you break out into, getting internet famous. So that's what all the people are, the only people that are going to find him on Odyssey is that people who know who Drachenlord is and want to go through enough, pain to figure out a new site and go there. So I don't think he certainly can't make any money of it. Now this whole defeated thing obviously is a double-edged sword for his community, as he would say, the haters. I'm going to say his community because that pretty much is his community, and they will always go to much length to tell you that they want Drachenlord deleted off the internet. And I mean, they're not a homogeneous mass, so there are certainly some people who want that, who legitimately want that, but I don't think the majority of his community, of the haters, as the mainstream terms it, wants that. Because they say that. They say they want him off the internet. But on the other hand, that's their hobby. That's their primary source of entertainment, both on the internet and if they, used to go and visit him in real life. And I really think that it's perverse, but it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Rainer Winkler, Drachenlord, gets hate, which he doesn't like, but he gets money, right? Which incentivizes him to do things, insult his viewers, stuff like that, insult the people that are in front of his door, do shitty things, expose himself on the internet in various ways, to get more hate, which gives him money because that's his audience. And the audience says, you're shit, we want you off the internet. But really, I strongly believe, personally, I personally strongly believe that what they really want is more of this content. There are a lot of people who enjoy this kind of reality TV trash, car crash content, right? And they want to see this guy make an absolute fool of himself on the internet. And I have to admit, he's doing it so well that it has it's like a car crash. I've started following this guy because of research purposes. First because I was interested in it, I was writing about it for this show. But then I kept following his escapades and this shit like this, where he fucking bans himself off YouTube and then manages to a day later fucking ban himself off Twitch and then fucks up his TikTok account 2 days later, and he just fucking keeps shooting himself in the foot over and over again. You're like, this is so ridiculous. This must be scripted, but I don't think it is. So it has a fascination. So I understand that. And why do I believe that most of his haters are like that as well? Because they are paying him money, right? His whole chat on YouTube was people that paid money to just insult him. And they pay money to keep him in bread, to keep him on the internet, to keep him doing this shit. Not enough money that he'll get rich and stop doing it, but enough to just that he could make a living of it, which is what he wanted. And then he kind of got the shit, and people loved watching that shit. So I think a lot of the haters who say that they just want Drachenlord off the internet are either hypocrites because they know they actually don't want to, or they just don't realize. I think a lot of them don't realize. They don't realize that if he actually was going to be deleted off the internet, then their entertainment would be gone, and they would be missing out. So it's like this perpetuum mobile of shit. It's like this self-sustaining engine of shit, of questionable or, in the best case, questionable, in the worst case, disgusting human behavior on both sides that just keeps rolling and rolling. And now that he's, now if he's actually off the internet, I think a lot of people in his community will miss that. They will probably look for the next idiot on YouTube. I mean, there are enough, but yeah. So I think it's kind of, it's a double-edged sword. These people were terrorizing him, but also giving him money, and he wanted the money, and then complained about that, them terrorizing him, and then got more money, and people terrorized him more, and it's just been going on for years. But if this is really all coming to an end now, and I think it will, because he just has no way of unless he gets unbanned somewhere, he has no way of making money anymore. And you could see that this was already approaching before he got banned off YouTube, right? Once he left his house, you know, people still could follow him. Like, that was fun for a while for people to like follow him ride around the country in his car that everybody could spot because it was just such an obvious car. But like once he got the car taken away from him, he was just in hiding. You could see his like views declining, right? And thus his income also declining. And I guess that's where the whole porn idea came from. Just desperation, I guess. Yeah. I don't know what he's going to do now. Either he has to find a job, which I don't think he is. He's the person to get and keep a job. Not from watching. Like, if he's like he is in his videos in real life, which I do think he is, because he wasn't putting on a persona, I think. Then yeah, that will be hard. So he's probably going to have to live off like welfare here in Germany. But I personally, I think if you ask me, he probably resigned himself to that he has to go to jail now after this last investigation, and he's probably just trying to keep afloat until he goes to jail and then plan his comeback. I'm pretty sure he's planning his comeback. If he goes to jail, he'll like, if he'll be in jail for a year, he'll be sitting there a year thinking, I'm going to be a star when I get out of jail. So he's gonna try to yeah. I think he's gonna try to come back. I don't know if that's gonna work, but I mean there were people who got permabanned off YouTube who got their accounts back. Also in Germany, so you know, might happen. We will see. Maybe we will never hear from him again, and then this story is dead. If there is still something going on, I'll keep you updated. The last thing I kind of want to answer before I shut the lid on this topic is, and I talked about this in the beginning when I first talked about him. Like, there was the issue of obviously is this bullying, which we cleared up. But then there's also the issue, like, this is kind of a free speech issue, right? Because what's happening to him is kind of like, you could almost say it's like kind of like censorship. It's like this, not a state censorship, but it's kind of like, you know, how other people, very different people, very different reasons, who were, you know, saying things that weren't going down with the establishment politically, you know, during the pandemic, or, you know, just during the Trump era, you know, people that were kicked off the internet just like this, just from private companies banning them off these centralized services. And then, you know, what do? You know, you don't have a platform anymore. And if you look at it from a bird's eye view, what happened to Drachenlord, technically it's kind of the same thing. But I think the devil's in the details. I think if you look at in detail what happened here, I think this is actually, I mean, YouTube let that guy say things on their platform that I am amazed that he didn't get banned earlier. I mean, he said the craziest things. And even before, when you stream on YouNow, they were even less moderating anything he said. He was saying batshit crazy stuff that, you know, on Twitch it certainly would have gotten banned for. So it was more of a case of him having a personality that people really don't react to well, and that most people really don't want to see, and didn't see for the most part. I think otherwise the public wouldn't have thought, you know, the prevailing understanding in the public, if I talk to normal people and they heard about this topic, they're like, oh, isn't he the guy who's getting bullied on the internet? And then I just explained to them, no, he's the guy who made the largest scale attempt to monetize provocation I've ever seen. It's basically how I would sum it up, right? And yes, he, in the process of that, he got faced with things that technically look like bullying, but it's kind of self-inflicted bullying, right? It's kind of like shooting yourself repeatedly and then complaining that guns are dangerous. You're not the person that's in the position, that had like their children shot, or that walked along the street and then got shot at by a random guy. If they say guns are dangerous, then you understand. But if I'm just a gun collector and like shooting myself in my lower body extremities, and then I say, look, guns, then I start complaining about guns, then that is like really weird. And I think this is kind of, if that metaphor is not too much out there, this is kind of what happened here. So I think, it's important to look at like kind of the details. It's like his personality and like his just the weird monetization loop he was stuck in, right? So basically the only thing he could monetize, because his content was shit. And I watched enough of it, his content is shit. Back when he was actually still producing content, that was shit. And that's okay. You can put shit content on YouTube, and people do. And I probably have put some very shit content on YouTube. Who cares? I'm free to do that. The thing is, you don't make a living of that. It doesn't work. Well, sometimes you have a fluke where somebody puts up like crazy, silly, stupid, dumb video, and then people kind of like the guy because of his personality, and then his other stuff takes off, and then he becomes a good YouTuber. And it actually happened to a lot of people. But like, this is a guy who puts shit stuff on YouTube, and he has a shit personality that nobody likes. The only thing that people want to do is basically they want to see him suffer, right? And so that was like the thing he could monetize. So he would just enrage his community even more, so that they did more crueler things to him, which he could then do videos about, which got him views, which got him money, and then got him attention, and then got him more people that did shitty things to him, and then you could monetize that. And I think that's the problem. I think that is specifically the problem. So it's not censorship, it's you don't want that content on your platform. And even YouTube, who just makes money of views, apparently at some point figured out that maybe we don't want to have this shit on maybe this is not good. Right? This is not good for the guy. It's not good for his audience. It's kind of like the audience that likes to watch that. Yeah, they, I don't want to judge them either if they're kind of watching that, but it's kind of like, and it's like junk entertainment. Like, it hurts you. Like, I got into this shit, and I watched a lot of Drachenlord, a lot of it for research purposes, but then I also found it very interesting. But whenever I watch this, I kind of know, right? I kind of know that this is like really bad content. This is junk. This is not good for me. And if I watch this and somebody else comes in the room, I feel kind of bad, right? And my wife would say, "What are you watching this guy for again?" And I know that's the thing, right? Like, if you have a little bit of understanding, healthy understanding of things, you know that it's kind of like, I like to go to McDonald's once in a while, right? But I limit myself. Like, I only do that when I'm like traveling on the motorway for long distances or something like that, right? And I'll have a Big Mac. And I really like Big Macs. When for a while here, they had like a double Big Mac. That was amazing. Why don't they do that anymore? Anyway, but I know it's shit. I know it's not good for me. Like, and I limit myself. I'm like, once in a while, like once every 2 months, every 3 months, you can go to Macca's, as we used to call it in Australia. You go to Macca's and get a Big Mac with fries. But I know that, right? I think the healthy thing is you have to know that. And I think a lot of the people that were into this Drachenlord shit didn't really realize that this is not a healthy thing. It's obviously not healthy for him. He's basically fucking destroying his life and his health, but also for the people watching. It's just not it's a very toxic, like, I don't use the word toxic easily, but that's a toxic community that he had. Like, everybody was trying everybody else. Like, even the haters were fucking, there were people like commenting on YouTube, and then they were doxing each other, right? So the actual community, whose goal ostensibly is to just get Drachenlord off the internet, was then so toxic to each other that they start toxing each other, and it's just a heap of garbage. Which, you know, I'm not judging, you know, that's sometimes what communities are. I'm not like, you know, Sasha Lobo, who's like, oh, this is all hate speech is evil, this is all evil, this, like, on the large scale of things. Even the people that went to his house and threw shit into his window, you know, on the evilness scale of fucking killing millions of people, oppressing a whole nation for like 50 years, invading other countries, being in the military and professionally shooting people, right? In that scale, throwing a glass bottle through some guy's window is actually not that evil. And I've said before, a large part of the problem that, you know, that happened when he was still there, when the Drachenschanze was there, down there in fucking Mittelfranken. A large part of the problem was just like that it was a rural area, and the fucking Bavarian police obviously wasn't up to the task, right? I said that, and I've actually seen other people on YouTube say the same thing. Was like, I said specifically, if he was living in Hamburg, this wouldn't have happened. Like, the Hamburg police, you know, every year they have like the left come in and like basically burn down a whole quarter of the city every year. The same quarter. It's ridiculous. They know how to deal shit with this. Like, they would have looked at this for a few months and they would have said, okay, we're now posting like this huge tank with a water cannon in front of his house. And anybody who comes along there and stands on the sidewalk for longer than 10 seconds will immediately get blasted with this water cannon, right? So that has its own problems. Hamburg is sometimes a bit of a police state in Germany. They're a bit fascists, sometimes fascistoid when it comes to this shit. But, like, you know, there's a middle ground between that, right? There's a middle ground between that and like the fucking Bavarian police, where they're like, for like 10 years, they were completely okay with this one guy and his fucking YouTube community. I think it was a third of all the police call outs of this police station that was responsible for the whole every huge area, because, you know, but this is like rural, nobody lives there. But, you know, he was like generating a third of all the police call outs, right? I don't understand how after half a year somebody in charge of the fucking police department didn't like wake up and go like, what is happening here? We need to stop this. This is not good. Like, some controlling guy just went at, like, why is Winkler? Why is a guy called Rainer Winkler responsible for a third of what we do here? And why is he not in jail or whatever? Like, what's going on here? Somebody needs to sort this out. And they just neglected to sort this out. So that's also a huge part of the problem. So, yeah. It's a very singular situation. If I was in school, if I was a teacher, and I'm very happy I'm not. But if I was a teacher, I would be teaching this. I don't know. I wouldn't even mind the subject. I would look at this whole story and just tell my pupils about it. I was just go, look, this is why you can't divorce the internet from your life. If you do like things on the internet, our life is digital now. It is part of our real life. People will show up at your door. And there's so many aspects you can, you know, what not to do on the internet, how communities react, right? What's bullying and what's not bullying, like what's actual hate and what isn't. Talked about this on the show a lot, so I don't want to go in that even more. But like, there's a German YouTuber who's a lawyer, who I've linked in the show notes before, I think. I'm pretty sure. Just looking. I don't. Well, anyway, I think I have. His name's Christian Solmecke. He has his practice has a YouTube channel, and he explains mostly media law and like internet law, and he's been reporting on Drachenlord from like the legal perspective as well. And in a recent video, where he was talking about this investigation, the last one, he was like basically shaking his head and said like, this guy gets into so much legal troubles. Like he said you could do a university lecture on the. So in Germany we have the Strafprozessordnung, which is kind of, it's like laws, but it's like it doesn't concern citizens. It's like stipulating how the executive, like the police and the rules they have to follow, right? How you actually raid somebody's home, like, you know, that kind of stuff. And he said like you could do like a university lecture on that, or you could just do a whole legal lecture just on Drachenlord, just on like the legal problems he's caused for himself, like the court cases, all the shit that went down at the court cases. I mean, it's just like drunk witnesses. It's just unbelievable. It's a very interesting phenomenon, and I think it's very relevant. The one reason I'm talking about this on a international podcast with listeners all over the world is I think if you don't have anything like this in your country, you will. I mean, this is just a phenomenon that is just grown out of our lives being digital now. I mean, there's I think I haven't looked into this in detail, but I think there's a YouTuber called Chris Chan in the US who basically had a lot of the things that happened to Drachenlord as well, or, you know, it's sometimes cited as a similar case. I haven't looked into the details, so I can't really compare and contrast, but I think this is a topic that's just, you know, it's not a German phenomenon. I mean, some of it are, like, I guess, you know, having lived in the UK for a while, also the police wouldn't have reacted like this in the UK. In other countries, often the police isn't that lenient with people. And in the UK, they would have put everybody in jail. They would have put Drachenlord in jail, and the people visiting him. Lots of them. And then they probably would have quelled a lot of the problem. Not that I'm generally for just liberally arresting people, but sometimes it does help. But the phenomenon is the same, right? I write a column for a German newspaper, which is a very rural newspaper, and I write about digital matters every week. So it's been going on for a year and a half now. And every week I write about digital matters. And I try to get away from the internet nerd perspective and look at the German, you know, the normal German man and woman on the street, you know, and have a like a normal person perspective to these kind of things. I've written about Drachenlord in that column. And in one of the columns about Drachenlord, I reacted to Sascha Lobo's column in Der Spiegel, and a lot of my colleagues in the mainstream media and in newspapers going, "Oh, look, this is what happens when the internet spills over into real life." And my point was basically, no, that is not what happened, because you can't, like, this notion that there's the internet and there's real life is like very 1990s, right? That real life is the internet, right? You go to a restaurant, they don't have a menu anymore. They have a QR code that you scan on your phone. That's the internet, right? People don't date by newspaper classifieds anymore, or they, you know, by meeting in clubs. They use apps and internet websites, and you know, their fucking stoves and fridges are connected to the internet. They've got fucking Alexa, and everything you do, you can't divorce, and I mean, some people can, but that's very, very seldom, right? You can't divorce your life from the internet, from your digital life. And it surprises me that people embrace that, and they're like, oh, we should have digital payments and everything should be on the internet and on blockchain, everything should be fucking in the cloud. But then they're surprised that if you piss people off on the internet systematically, they turn up in front of your house in the hundreds. To me, I mean, I didn't even realize that happened when that Schanzenfest 2018, which was like when hundreds of people turned up to Drachenlord's house. When that happened in real life, I wasn't following the story. I didn't read about this. I think it was on my birthday, which is probably why I was off work for a few days. I didn't even notice. Otherwise, I would have covered the story from back then, I think. But like that, that doesn't surprise me. Right? Most people are surprised that happened. I'm like, no, if you're on YouTube and you have hundreds of thousands of viewers and you continue insulting them and you like say wrong bullshit, like you're like, oh, I'm an expert in this, in cars, and then you just explain bullshit, and then people in your chat go, no, this is wrong. Right? Somebody like me, I mean, I've said things that are wrong. I'm like one of the most egocentrical persons there are. I think I know everything. But if somebody in Twitch chat goes, no, actually, this is like this, and then I at least look it up, right? Or I'm like, well, you're right. Or maybe you're right. Or maybe I don't know as much. This guy was just like deleting all the comments everywhere. Right? He was continuously saying stupid things. And then people were like, no, this is actually not how cars work. And then he's like, no, I'm right. I'm better than you. And then he's deleting all their comments. People will get pissed off. And if you then put out a video saying where you live and you invite people to like fucking poster signings and buy posters because you want to make money, then they will turn up. Because you're an idiot. And you're an idiot on the internet. And then you're insulting everybody. Of course they're going to turn up. Why are people surprised by this? There's no wall between the internet and real life. I've never understood this. But anyway, I think this is a groundbreaking phenomenon. And for once, we had it in Germany, which usually doesn't happen when it comes to the internet and digital things. But I think something like this will happen more and more. And I'm probably going to talk about it on the show. But anyway, so that was probably the last Drachenlord episode for a while. I guess we'll see. If something comes up, I'll follow along. And I actually had a number of people contacting me during the holidays going, did you see what Drachenlord? You did so good coverage. Please cover this. So, here we go. But before I end the show, of course, we'll have to talk a little bit about your feedback that you've sent me while I was on holiday. And I got a lot of general feedback. Like I got a lot of like, oh, please continue doing the show, or thanks for doing the show, which is great. I just want to say that I appreciate that a lot. But that's not something I'm going to read out on the show really, because it's meant for me, I think. But we had on the forum something I want to talk about is. There was a discussion on episode 120 where I talked about, the new legislation in the European Union around cars. How cars have to now figure out if you're following the traffic rules, and then if you don't, kind of overrule you or warn you or stuff like that. And the first response to this is from Necros, who's from Russia. And I ran out of Earl Grey. Damn it. No, that's not what he said. Necros said, you pose a very sound question at the end of the main part. If the elected lawmakers see those who elected them as unable to make adult decisions, how is the whole democratic process supposed to be valid? If we were talking about Russia, the answer would be clear. The democratic process isn't supposed to be valid at all. From the point of view of an, quote, elected lawmaker, common people are indeed not supposed to make any decisions for themselves, and ideally, they wouldn't even want to. Decision-making is what the elites are for. The, quote, democratic process is in place to make sure the whole thing looks legit, but doesn't affect actual decision-making in the slightest. I think, this is, usually in literature. I mean, this is it's pretty much a symptom of a technocracy, or like a what's the other word I'm looking for? It's not specifically oligarchy, but government by the elites, basically. Damn. Now I wanted to make a salient point here and forgot the word I'm looking for. But yeah. I think Nikos makes a good point there. He continues, there are ways to make sure the common people elect the necessary candidates, and there are safeguards to make sure no rogue commoner can sneak in as a candidate. The more decisions are made for the common people, the less incentive there is for the common people to even think about making the decisions, the better. Common people are there to produce wealth for elites, not to tell elites what to do. It's a very socialist influenced view, but I'm not necessarily wrong, I would think. Common people are there to produce. Well, no, I read this before. Anyway, it continues. From this point of view, such a decision makes total sense. From the point of view of an ideally working democratic process whereby electing candidates, citizens make sure their interests are represented, it makes none, as you've pointed out in the podcast. Which makes me wonder if the EU is actually closer to Russia than to an ideally working democratic process, at least in some regards. I think you're spot on there. I think, it is closer to Russia. Although I wouldn't put Russia there as such a bad example. I think, for example, Germany, my government is in that spectrum as well. I don't, it's just more obvious in Russia. I don't think it's as crass as Nikos pointed out here, and this is probably just, he was probably employing a little bit of rhetoric. I can read that through the lines, a little bit sarcastic. But it's like there's a spectrum of democracy, right? And there is, in democratic theory, there's how modern democracies are supposed to work. But I think he's referring to when he says like ideally working democracy, which doesn't exist, of course. And then there's like very bad examples. And yes, I would say Russia is more on the spectrum towards the really bad example than the EU. But I don't think the EU is necessarily that far on the ideally working government. I don't think it's as black and white as he describes here, where there's the elites govern everything and then they keep the common people out of it. There's people who just get elected and then get into positions. But I think the system is kind of a self-regulating thing. And we have this in Germany too, where a lot of the political power rests with the same elites. And in some cases, you can even, like in some cases, their families, like Bavaria was relatively famous for this. And then it's very obvious in the US, where families like the Bushes and the Kennedys, who are traditionally have held a lot of political power, and they're less obvious elites, and sometimes there are exceptions to the rules, but I think generally it's like democracy evolved from what the ancient Greeks basically invented to what we have today, which is a largely a professional, even if they're not like elites in the respect of like being rich or whatever, they're there's a class of professional politician, and that's an elite class, and we developed a system where you have organized parties and organized elections, which is all makes sense, but that stratifies the system, and it leads to certain people having success and certain people getting elected and certain people having certain interests, invested interests, and protecting these interests, right? So if you have a system of professional politicians where basically getting elected and becoming a politician is a job and is a relatively well-paid and secure job, then you have an interest group, right? These people are interested. This is why they don't, if the parliament is in charge of setting their own salary, right, then they won't. It's no surprise that it's not a conspiracy or an elitist system that says, okay, they will only up their salary, right? It's just normal. It's just that's I don't know if I'm making sense here when I'm trying to explain, but I'm doing this off the top of my head. It's just it's almost like chaos theory, right? It's how a system will behave. Even if you don't have any rules, hard rules, it's just the way the system is structured will cause certain things to happen. And this is why you get the formation of elites of a certain caliber, right? And they don't even have to be rich. Often in today's societies, there will be relatively rich people, but in the Soviet Union, where you didn't really have personal property, they also had classes forming and certain groups that held all the power, and then they didn't have money, but they have certain perks foreign cars and things other people didn't have. So it's kind of I think the word I was looking for earlier is plutocracy, but it's kind of I think all democracies, because they're human constructions and humans are flawed, so they're also flawed, right? So, and the longer they exist, the more the stratification sits in the system, and the more effects like this happen. And I think one of the effects is that I was talking about is that these people who are a class of professional politician, or just a class, politicians in the EU are a certain class. And I think they think of themselves as smarter and better than the man in the street, so to speak. And that's how they make laws like this. And what I was pointing out, and what Necros also saw or sees and was saying I was right on, is that this making laws like this, having cars that treat their owners as children and as not as grown-ups, doesn't make sense, because you're a politician and the whole system you're working in, the system that got you elected, presumes that the people that elect you are thinking, mature individuals. Otherwise, this whole system doesn't work, right? But I think these elites, that it's like an echo chamber, it's like a bubble, it's like everything else, like a Twitter bubble. They're in this echo chamber, and they will convince themselves that people are dumb and need to be protected from themselves, and they don't think about laws like this actually undermining the democratic system. But it's also very important to recognize that I think all democracies are like this, right? I don't think the German democracy is inherently better than the Russian. I think if you look at both systems right now, I would say the German system is more democratic and more freedom, civil liberties oriented. But that doesn't mean the same flaws aren't inherent in both systems. Just like in one system, there are more pronounced than in the other. And I think that's also a historic thing, especially if you compare Germany and Russia, where Germany had very, very clear, a very clear history with like an autocratic regime that was basically wiped off the planet, and then the populace re-educated for decades, and like in schools, like even me in school, like 50 years later, still having to learn, what happened there. And then you have another autocratic system in Russia, which won this war to purge our autocratic system and therefore legitimized itself, right? And you have people in Germany when I was growing up saying that that's not an autocratic system, that, that East Germany was a just government and probably would have been, it's a good thing. So Russia collectively as a nation didn't work through the history in that way, and that that just caused a different development. And then when Russia, in a very different situation, came to democracy, it was from a very different starting point than, for example, Germany. And the US being a whole different case, and the UK is always different. So this is why, they're different shades of these factors in democracy. But I think all the factors and all the challenges are the same, broadly speaking, in all of these countries. Anyway, Astro C chimed in also about these cars and legislation. I remember a discussion on the Discord server, RIP, about assistive technologies in cars, and if they're helping or not. I still think a lot of the helpers just make the driver stupider. Less about laws, more about common sense. I mean, also the notify stuff. I have Mobile Eye in my car, which just beeps in certain situations, and sometimes I see how much it has wrongly identified lanes or distances. But mainly the quasi-self-driving stuff. Lane assist, distance keeping, speed keeping. I tried to drive a car with this, and it felt like I was fighting the car. Which I also feel when I'm in a car like that. No technology will have a predictable way to behave in all situations, and making drivers idiots won't help with that. I agree with that. And the predictable thing is even more, I didn't even get into that, but like that's a issue with self-driving cars, but these are all the same technologies, so these will be the same issues. Because they're not predictable, this will get into legal problems at some point. Because it's not like like a system like ABS or something, like assistive braking or whatever, where you're like, there's a sensor and if an anti-locking technology, right? If you hit the brake and the wheel locks, then we will disengage the brake until the wheel stops locking and we actually have some traction, and then you can engage the brake. That's something you can predict, right? That's something that if something happens and there's a crash because of this, then in a court case, they can show you they can show you the whatever it is, like the mechanical device or like the source code that says this is how it works. Whereas if you have like stuff like recognizing signs with machine learning, like road signs, then there's not like an algorithm, because it retrains itself constantly, and there's going to be all these kind of problems. That's actually something I want to get into on the show as well. It's a big issue with self-driving cars. Astro-C also says, also smartifying cars, it's a step for including self-driving cars as the only service as part of the globalist agenda of the Great Reset. Or is it? Question mark. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly taking freedom away from people, right? I don't need to explain to anybody how like having a car is freedom in your life. I mean, I went to a time where I didn't have a car. Like I sold my car, I was living in London, and then I lived in Germany without a car for a while. So I know what it feels like to live in a rural area and also in a big city without a car. And, and I'm not saying you can't, like, of course you can, but it's like having a car is a tangible personal freedom, or like any, like, motorbike's the same thing. Like it's tangible personal freedom. I can decide I want to go there now. I don't have to look that public transport is running. I don't have to have a service where I depend on the service where they can cut me off if I did something wrong in the app. If I'm Drachenlord, I can't use Uber or whatever, these kind of things. And then also we had, in the same topic, but on the forum, but on a completely unrelated actual topic, because I think I was at a Toten Hosen concert, or going to one. I was talking about it. Buzzerville said, I had intended to ask you about the Toten Hosen after recently learning my favorite punk band, The Living End, he's from Australia, played the Toten Hosen in Australia and Germany. You also reminded me to check out the Toten Hosen, which I will do tomorrow on the way to work. I would be interesting to hear on how that, I can't even imagine what you get out of listening to the Toten Hosen if you don't speak German. Obviously, I speak English, so, I can listen to English music, and I'm like, lyrics are very important to me. That's what I'm trying to say. If I listen to a band that, sings in a language I can't understand, it's just like, it doesn't really work for me. So I'd be interested to hear what you think. And also, like, you're saying we're gonna ask me about the band. If you wanna know any, if you have questions, let me know. Either in the forum, write me an email, and if it's interesting, if something interesting comes out of that I can talk about on the show, then of course I'll do that. But I'm also happy to just answer questions. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I thought it was interesting. I can't remember if I talked about the concert after the concert or before, but it was a very good concert. It was my first concert after the pandemic, and the Toten Hosen being from Düsseldorf, the stadium was packed. We saw them in the football stadium here, and like 50,000 people, and it was like completely packed. It was a very good atmosphere. It was a lot of fun, even though I'm not, punk isn't my isn't go-to genre to me, and Toten Hosen I'm familiar with, but I'm not like a hardcore fan. My wife, I was going there with my wife. My wife really likes them. I think of the two famous punk bands from Germany, Toten Hosen and Die Ärzte, I was always a Toten Hosen guy. They had like this rivalry, which was more for PR purposes than anything, I feel. But I think the Toten Hosen stand out among most punk bands in that they can actually play music. I'm not saying, I believe there's the thing with punk bands. Most of them, they can actually play music, certainly better than I do. But like lots of them, I feel like they're intentionally playing shitty or have shitty, acoustics when you go to the concert. And the Toten Hosen are much more like a rock band. And their music is also very rock inspired, I feel. I think they're more like a rock band than a punk band, which is probably why I like them. Anyway, that's it about that. Let's wrap up the show. Let's get out of here. Been going on for a long time again. And in case you can hear my voice is kind of giving up, I need to drink a little bit. It's the bloody allergies. But yeah, I'll do that while I play the bumper for the next segment here. Right, that's better. My allergies aren't actually that bad this year, but obviously it being the middle of the summer, and I'm allergic to grass, seeds or whatever, like the pollen. There's obviously it's prime time for that. Anyway, I was saying before, a lot of people supported the show while I was gone, and I love that. So I want to thank them, but I want to thank all of you who support this show. It's, I don't think I could talk about topics like Drachenlord as frankly as I did today, especially, talking about the giving you some insights into some communities where some interesting sexual practices are going on. Can't really do that when you're advertiser supported, and I don't really want to be advertiser supported. I love being supported by you, the listeners. So thanks to everybody who's doing that. You can support me on Patreon. Go to the show notes, privatecitizen.press. It's all explained in there. It explains the value for value model, which is what the show is produced under, which basically means you get it for free and then decide what it's worth to you. You can also support me if you don't like Patreon and you don't want to do like a monthly thing. You can also support me via PayPal directly. Details are in the show notes. So thanks to everybody who's been doing this, and all the people I'm reading out now have been supporting the show while I wasn't producing episodes. So that's pretty cool. So thanks to Galtaran, Rodane the Insane, Steve Hose, Butterbeans, Michael Small, 1I11G, Jonathan M. Hitai, Jonathan M. Hitai, Michael Mal Jensen, Dave, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Jackie Plage, Sandman616, IKN, Bennett Piata, Vlad, Rizal, Avis, Joe Poser, Dirk Didi, Kai Sears, Fadi Mansour, David Potter, Mika, Cam, Mr. Amish, RJ Tracy, Captain Eckhead, Rick Bragg, Ricky M, Barry Williams, Jonathan, Robert Forster, Astral C, Crunkle, Superuser, D, Florian P. Gorsh, and Eric Lelay. And also, because I'm live streaming this on Twitch, thanks to all my Twitch supporters who support me when I play video games badly, but also when I podcast. So thanks to Mike the Dane, MTE Sorrow, PK Mur, Bacon the Pork, Redeemer F, Al Terrestrius Jim, Galterin once again, and Jonathan 4747. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate what you're doing. You're keeping the show on the air, and keeping it real, so to speak. I also have to thank Bytemark, who sponsor. Well, it's kind of I don't really have sponsors, but they've been basically giving me servers that I can, bandwidth and storage for the podcast files, which has worked for years, and I'm grateful to them. So they're providing me that for free. They're at bytemark.co.uk. They're UK-based cloud hosting company, and I haven't had any issues. This is like literally a decade, I think, now that they've been doing this, and there was, I think, 2 times when they had a scheduled upgrade, and 1 time when a hard drive died, and so it was down for like 20 minutes or something, and everything was back without issues. So I love Bytemark. Thanks, bytemark.co.uk. Couldn't do the show without them either. And the while we're at giving people credit, the theme song to the show is called Acoustic Roots by Ra'u Kabzali, and I'm gonna play you out with some synthwave. I saw that ELFL had released some new music on Epidemic Sound, which is what I licensed for the show. So this is the song First Horizon by ELFL. And with that, I'm gonna play us out, and I'm gonna be back at the latest next Wednesday with another episode, and maybe if I can, I can shove some extra episodes in. I will. Otherwise, see you next Wednesday. Thanks for listening. And what do I usually say? Aim to misbehave? Aim to misbehave. Yeah. And that's the show. I think I actually recorded a podcast. Woo! Pretty cool. I'll edit this and put it out now. And I'm gonna leave you now because I gotta get this done, and I actually have to do some other work. But I'll try to stream some Fallout at some point on Twitch. So maybe this week at some point, if I can fit it in. It's a bit of a, I don't know, it's not really that busy, but my birthday is also coming up, so it's just shit happening. I'm gonna have I have an appointment on Friday to talk about another tattoo I'm getting done and shit like that. So yeah, I'll try. In the meantime, I'll hand you over to Deadly Slop, who has a charity stream going on right now.
Guys, how the hell does this even hook in?
He's raising money for pancreatic cancer charity, and I think he's gonna play Lawnmower Simulator, but it looks like he's got a Logitech.
It's got this. It's got the pin connectors on
steering
the
wheel.
Pedals.
That's pretty much the same
it's
I
all
got.
Connected to the wheel. At the bottom.
And he looks like he's still setting it up.
Into the wheel.
But after he's trying to, but after that he'll do some lawn mowing, I guess. So I'll hand you off to Deadly Slop, who's a great streamer from Canada. He's one of my favorite streamers. Plays a lot of Escape from Tarkov, but also My Summer Car. Recently, now he's mowing lawns again. He actually has a lawnmower, ride-on lawnmower, because he has a very big property. I like that he has the fucking Windows XP background. that's hilarious. So yeah, let's go over there, and I'll be back on Twitch soon. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for all the support, and I hope you have a great day, a great week, and see you soon. I guess. So yeah, I'll be handing you over to Deadly Slop now. If I can figure out how this works, I'm just looking at things here and trying to figure out how that works. So yeah, have fun with Deadly Slop. I'll try to patch you over now in a bit.